feel like my job involves helping humanitarians emancipate from the system. And I have been analyzing recently about certain behaviors that I keep hearing from humanitarians about how they feel thrown out of the system, how they feel neglected or wronged by the system, and especially when it comes to UN system, but humanitarian sector as a system. Then I have realized one thing that I think would be so useful for us all to reflect on, which is how we might have built a savior type of relationship with the UN. And I want to explain to you what I mean by it, but also I want to explain what are the main signs that shows how this is the type of relationship that we have built that then led us to suffering now in the days when it's the most challenging. So savior relationship with the system is where we have essentially allowed the system to do everything it wants with us because we have seen the system as a savior to all of our problems or all of our needs, right? This is a type of thing that I think a lot of the times we used to do as humans, especially maybe even as women back in the day, when we think about thinking of marriage or husbands being the saviors of us all, and like this never ending fairy tale of um, a prince in the white horse saving and this kind of thing, right? And then we, especially as women, realize, okay, we don't want to be part of that oppressive society, and not only, but we want to have equal rights and powers. That does not make us any more saving objects or subjects, right? Saving subjects or subjects that need to be saved by others. While we have done that emancipation in many parts of the world as women, I believe we haven't done that as humanitarians, as even employees within the humanitarian sector, I believe. And maybe for some this does not apply, and that's fine. But I hear a lot of the time when stories of humanitarians who feel like the system has thrown them out, the system wronged them, the system made this injustice, the system promised me a bright future and it's not delivering on it. And how I see a lot of those humanitarians suffering in this process, the more we explore this, why they're suffering and how they're suffering, we start realizing that we have put the system as a answer to all of our needs, as an answer to all of the things, and it was supposed to be saving us in some way from all the instability, all the job security, and all of this. And while UN and other systems may have promised that or may have depicted the ideals that we really bought into, which was amazing, right? But we might have forgotten in the process that that level of someone else taking care of us also come with a lot of consequences that we didn't realize before. And those consequences are oftentimes is abuse that we kept tolerating. Then we even maybe internalized it and made it a self-abuse, right? And self-abuse can look like where we keep staying in denial and suffering as to how this is not how it should have gone and not accepting the reality of what it is. And the more we keep torturing ourselves as to how this is not how it's supposed to be, this is not what I imagined my life to be, and all of this, the more we keep abusing ourselves with suffering instead of deciding what to do and move forward. So the main sign, I would say, of savior relationship where one side needs to save the other is if that does not happen, or if things don't go the way that we thought it would, then we are likely to also allow abuse to take place. Or maybe we have even tolerated a lot of abuse while being in that relationship, right? And we have a lot of counts of humanitarians talk about how they have been um, abused mentally, emotionally, doing things that they didn't want to do for a long time, and all of this. But I think the fundamental question is, now that we're reflecting on all of this, is why did we allow the system to do this to us? As much as we have reasons to hate, or as much of the reasons why we feel so wronged and so unjust of all the things that has happened, as much of all the suffering that we're going through, we may need to ask fundamental questions as to why did we need to go to a relationship that sounded like a savior type of relationship, right? And I, like, from my own experience, I have done that too, right? I believed, beside all the amazing causes that I would work on that I believed are so important in this world, I also bought into the idea of UN being the answer to all of the things, right? I definitely believe that UN was there to save me, whatever that means for me, right? And you probably heard my story where I was telling you that if I was to compare my mom and how she believed that she needed saving by her husband at the time, I was certainly bought into the idea that, okay, I'm not going to, or I don't want to be saved by a man, because I felt like I'm emancipated and I'm an independent woman and all of this. But I didn't realize that I was actually seeking for saving from the system, right? And that saving looked in so many different ways. Some of the ways is like believing that UN would take care of me forever, believing that UN will always do things just according to its ideals and principles and policies and strategies, people's strategies that I believed were there to save me, to make me, to take care of me, and all of this, right? Without realizing that all of those come at a cost that I understood very late. And the cost was full dependency, right? And I've been thinking more and more about what did make me go into the relationship with UN, where I saw UN or the system as a savior to all my problems. What made me go into that direction? Because I was the one who was saying that I don't need saving, right? So why did I go into that relationship in that unhealthy way? And of course, there are a lot of reasons for it, right? So one reason is society is so good at teaching us that if we have one job, we need to stick to it, especially if it has all the privileges and all the great benefits. Obviously, we should agree to whatever the system wants us to do and keep that job. That's societal programming that's absolutely there. And I bought into it. And there was other elements that were personal as well, right? Apparently, there was a time that I thought I need saving, not from another person, which might be already great news, but from a system, right? And as soon as I believe that the system is not doing the way that I thought it should do, then I was very upset about it. It was very personal, right? it was very personal as to, well, I gave and I gave, I sacrificed everything. I sacrificed away from my family, from my loved ones. I sacrificed going to duty stations that I didn't want to go. And then in the end, what do I get? Was really my reproach. And then eventually to realize, wait a minute, but what if, even if the UN promised me all of those things, what if it can never deliver? And the reason why it can't deliver, maybe even not like anything personal. Maybe it's just not supposed to. I don't know, like everyone has their own explanation to this, right? But even more so, what I realized is, what if I was never supposed to be saved by anyone, let alone by the system? Right? Even if the system promised me all of those things, what if it was never able to deliver on it? And I just got into the illusion of believing that it did. And the cost of me believing in that savior relationship, in that relationship with the system, the cost of it was that because I felt so dependent on it, that I stopped taking responsibility for how to do things myself, how to trust my own wisdom and decisions to do things the way that I want to, if system and I were not going in the same direction. And that was a cost, right? And of course, I realized that that was a big cost, because that's what happens in the savior relationship, right? Beside the abuse that we can experience and the suffering that we experience when things don't go the way we want to, but we also stop knowing or stop trusting our own responsibility and our own wisdom, our own powers of doing things our way, if system and I don't agree. And I think a lot of the times that did happen for many humanitarians. They didn't agree with the system, but they kept going anyway because it felt somehow comfortable and known. And that's a very human thing as well. Excuse me. That's a very evolutionary, explainable behavior, right? We like the know, or we are better with the known uncomfortable situations than the unknown uncomfortable situations, and that's very explainable and understandable. And we get very comfortable even if we're not comfortable on daily basis, but overall maybe we get comfortable. And those are all understandable, but I think what might be now time to understand or reflect on for ourselves is, why was there a reason for us to get into a relationship that lasted for 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, maybe even more, where we always believe that the employer will take care of us in all sense and purposes? And if we didn't expect that anymore, then how do we take care of ourselves and do the things the way that we want to do outside of the system? And I think this is one of those painful lessons that we might be learning for many of us, right? I have done that, I think 4 years ago, 5 years ago now. But I feel like a lot of humanitarians are going through this, where we are recognizing that we have given or abdicated a lot of our responsibility to the system, believing that it was there to do all the things that it promised. And then now we're seeing that it cannot or does not want to do it, whatever your situation might be. Now the question is, okay, what if we now have a great opportunity to face things in the eye and say, okay, why did we need to go to that relationship? Or why did we need that saving? Or why did we need that promise of someone taking care of ourselves, and then that can never work, right? Even like in normal relationships, even in loved relationships, it may not work, let alone in the system. So just the way that we don't expect other humans to take care of ourselves, because we know that they can't do that even if we wanted to, right? They can't be in charge of our emotional well-being. They can't be in charge of our mental well-being. They can't be in charge of our physical well-being. It's a bit like asking someone go to a bathroom for you, right? Obviously, it can't work. And what if that's also true for the system? What if with the system as well, it was never supposed to be working that way, but we just believed that it was possible, or we had that illusion that it was possible, and maybe at some point it was like genuinely possible, right? I just haven't seen that in my own experience, at least. So therefore, all of the suffering and feeling a victim of the system's abuse happening might be a result of us putting the system as our saviors. And the question is, why did we do that? And not from the blaming perspective or from the accusation of, oh, I shouldn't have done this, da, 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 da. That's not the point, right? Because that's not helpful anyway. But from the perspective of, okay, does that make sense now to keep suffering about all of the wrong things that we feel like we've been wronged? Or what do we want to do about those situations? And please don't hear me say that don't fight for justice and all of this. That's not what I'm saying, right? But I'm just wanting you to see, was this really an equal relationship that we all as humanitarians want to fight for in the world, right? Equalities, equities, and having rights, and not just making things based on um, this is more powerful and therefore they will take care of us kind of thing. So if we are humanitarians who are believing in equality and wanting to have healthy relationship with the employer, then all of the suffering that we're going through now, what are we going to do about it? And I fear that a lot of the time humanitarians feel so stuck in that injustice feeling or injustice feeling, right? Of this is not how it's supposed to be happening. I've been wronged. I've been thrown out. I've been this. I've been that. And the system did this to me. And feeling so much victim of that system, and that keeps perpetuating that self-abuse. And I think a lot of us are not recognizing that. And instead, what we're wanting is we're wanting the system to do a justice again, to do things right again, and all of these things. And again, if you are doing it with legal means of getting legal representation, maybe you will have some answers amazing for you. But if you're not doing that way, then what would be the purpose of keep suffering from that? What would be the purpose of you keep feeling victim of the system? And the other thing is, if we're feeling like we're victims of the system, then we have allowed the system to do all of this to us. Not only now, but for a long time. And the question is why? Why have we done or allowed the system to do this for a long time. And remember, the abuse often comes from not feeling equals, not feeling powerful enough to get our own way if the system and we don't agree with it. And why haven't we gone our own way, or how can we now go our own way? Right? So the goal that I want to, or the advocacy that I really want to make, is knowing what we've learned from the system so far, checking with ourselves, is this another savior relationship that we're building or not? And the way we would know that it's a savior relationship or equal relationship or powerful relationship, whichever the way you call it, is when we expect the other side of doing everything or taking care of everything and all of these things. And then when it doesn't do or can't do, then we get so a victim of that system, right? But if we don't want to be a victim of that system, then we also need to have that power and equality that we feel within ourselves to be going our own way when things don't work the way we want to. Because that element is so essential for us to stay true to our values of being in integrity, of doing things that we believe in and not doing things that we don't. Those are all of the values that might be important to us. They require us to feel that power equality within us. Without it, we cannot really pursue our values either. And savior relationships, unfortunately, don't allow us to be pursuing our values all the time, because it's one side too powerful and the other side too weak, right? And one side is too powerful, they get to then dictate what we can and cannot do. And that alone will strip us of our values. Maybe not all, but some of them. And therefore, I would like for us to really use this opportunity to say, okay, from now on, do we really want to build relationship this way, the way that we have with our employer, or not? And if we're not building relationship the way that we have always built, which is where the system dictates what we do and what we don't do, and we keep allowing the system to do anything it wants with us, which would be a savior relationship, or we know how to say no to the system when needed. And if it doesn't accept, then we also know what to do outside of it. And that's really what I want to pursue with my humanitarians, is how do we get that ability that we have to make whatever the money side of things work, to make all the things work for what we want to do in life, so that we are no longer building that savior relationship with the system, so that we always know that we have options and we don't need to be fully dependent on it. We don't need to be saved by the system. We can do things our own way, and we can do things successfully, not only in terms of our fulfillment and um, impact, but also in terms of money. And that's what I want to invite you to, is how can we replicate our UN Peace Rate salary so that we don't have that dependency on the system. So if you would like to join, you have this week time to enroll. Okay, my dears, thank you so much for being here. You can click the consult button to come to talk to me.